Committee on the Downtown Stadium and Convention Center renovation. This is a special meeting. Today is Monday, September the 24th, and it is about 10 after 9 a.m. in the morning, and I'm joined here by Mr. Labange and Mr. Huizar, and I'm sure other members will be forthcoming in just a minute. I want to thank all of my colleagues here and the members of the public for joining us today for our final committee meeting of the Ad Hoc Stadium and Convention Center modernization. Thank you to Channel 35 for broadcasting this live. For those who don't get Channel 35, you can view the meeting at www.lacityview.org. We have been working on this project for nearly 2 years and working through this committee in a very direct and transparent manner. And I want to thank the city staff, the CLA, Chief Legislative Analyst, and the Chief Administrative Officer, and their respective staffs for working very, very hard, making this their number one goal to ensure that the city and taxpayer interests are protected. This has always been our top priority. I'm also very excited at the prospect of being able to update our convention center and make it a competitive space, not only in the region but in the country, with plans for the largest ballroom space in Southern California that offers flexibility and versatility to conventions. We, the City of Los Angeles, are certain to attract more business, more conventions like E3 and the Worldwide Microsoft Partners Convention. These conventions bring millions of dollars in investment to hotel and tourism dollars to our city, but the impact reaches further than just downtown. It goes to our bottom line as a city. For example, during the Microsoft Worldwide Partners Conference, Los Angeles Inc., or the Visitors Bureau, reported hotels as far south as San Pedro felt the positive effects of this conference. Additionally, this project has the potential to bring well over 20,000 new jobs to the region at a time when we desperately need them. And finally, the project would bring football back. Los Angeles is the second largest city in the nation, and yet we are still without a team. It's time to change that. I want to thank all of you for your hard work, and I look forward to discussing the terms of the development agreement, including the community benefits agreement, today in committee. So what I'd like to do first is to begin with Mr. Miller and Mr. Santana. Is Mr. Santana here, or CAO's representative here? Mr. Reyes has joined us. So, Mr. Miller, and then the representative from the CAO's office, if you want to take your place at the table too, okay. I'm Mr. Lywicki. I think he's here too. Yes. We'll take him next, though. All right. Mr. Miller, I understand there's a few amendments that may need to be made to this agreement today. Can you outline them for me?
Yes, and actually we're still working on the language on that. I think the issue, clearly the issue is the announcement of the potential sale of AEG. To be clear, there are assignment provisions throughout the document. There are always assignment provisions throughout the documents on any transaction that comes before you. Transfer of ownership and assets and risks to the city is always an issue, and this is no different. So there are and have been provisions throughout our negotiations over the last year that have dealt with sales and transfers.
If you might for a second, just for the edification of the public, outline what those assignments addressed in the underlying documents.
Well, in essence, they address assigning the rights in everything, in the event center ground lease, in the parking leases. It really goes throughout the whole transaction. AEG is the core entity. And so if AEG signs a portion of their rights or assigns a portion of their rights under the agreements, there are provisions that deal with that, and they're extensive. Now, it had always been assumed that Since we don't know who the team owner is and we don't know what the team ownership structure is yet, it had always been assumed that there would be some assignment of some rights under the agreement, and that's contemplated in here. And when I say assignment, it means essentially, selling or transferring ownership of the assets. And the assets, again, here that we're talking about are the event center ground lease and the parking ground leases. Now, the ownership and control of AEG as well, we are working on exactly what language to deal with that, and I think what we're going to do is have that in council on Friday. But to be clear, there will be city approval rights, and the assignment provisions are going to apply towards any purchaser of AEG itself.
Okay. All right, then let's talk about the proposed potential amendments that you want to put on the record today.
Well, again, there are, the city has approval rights relative to character of assignment and ownership rights. We are going to add an experience component in there to be clear about that. But again, in the discussion of all of this, it's important to note that AEG is not going away. They're being sold. The expectation is, and I think Mr. Lewicki is going to address that, is we are going to continue to do business with the entity that is now today known as AEG. So what we do want to do, however, is protect the city's rights in who they're dealing with, who actually owns AEG. So there's an experience component, a character component, and a financial component that we're looking at and clearing up language on.
And then if you could elaborate a bit on the experience component and the character component.
Well, certainly. I think, relative to experience, in essence, we want to make it clear that whatever ownership structure ends up at the end of the day, if AEG is sold, that the entity that is operating the event center has experience in operating major sports venues. So that would be the experience component. Character component, of course, is also something that we're defining. It's very broad right now. I think we need to define it a little more specifically, and that's what we're working on to make sure that it's a person of, that we're dealing with someone who is not, to be blunt, a crook in some fashion, or is somebody that we don't want to be doing business with. Mm-hmm. And obviously, we don't anticipate the financial requirements to change at all, because recall that the event center itself has to be financed with 40% equity, so it will have to be someone with substantial financial capability that we are not anticipating any changes in.
And then what language do we have to ensure that someone doesn't come as a successor and try to over-leverage the asset and then cause the project to be in jeopardy and thus come back to the city to try to renegotiate?
Again, those are the financial components, and all of that is going to have to be shown to the city prior to closing. So we're going to have to see that the event center itself is financed with no more than 60% debt and 40% equity. Now, what that means is that in an Armageddon scenario in which things are not working out and the city has to foreclose on the event center ground lease, that the facility itself has at least 40% equity in it, which is an extraordinarily strong protection for the city to be able to bring somebody else in to run the event center.
So if I could
Mr.
add,
Santana.
yes, if I could add. So in other words, the new owner can't suddenly make this into a mall or decide they're going to make it into some kind of residential high-end housing. The agreement is very specific as to what the property should be used for, the schedule, and how the repayment occurs. So there's no flexibility on the use of the land for purposes of leveraging, as you stated.
Or over-leveraging, and I guess, but basically what we're doing is taking items 1 and 2, and then I'll go back to the public. But these are the implementation, the transaction documents, and I think I guess you categorize them as the foundational documents. I guess I'm concerned that we are not put in a position down the line, assuming that we proceed on this, that someone else comes in and decides they don't like like the ratio, the debt-to-equity ratio, and that we're substantially engaged in this process, that they try to have us over a barrel and violate our original negotiating principles, which was to protect the taxpayer interest and then have a new and modernized convention center.
Well, to be very clear, anybody who steps into this agreement, this project, is going to have to live by all of the agreements that we've negotiated, or the city will not close. Now, that would be a great shame, because I think this presents an extraordinary opportunity for the city to have a new and revitalized and competitive convention center, as well as the job creation, et cetera. But at the end of the day, the city is not at risk in any way. In the worst case, we're left where we are today, and we need to rethink how to go forward with our convention center. But we have no money invested in this. We will have no public money invested in the event center in any way, shape, or form. Whoever steps in is going to have to live by the debt-to-equity requirements in the agreements, as well as all of the other provisions as well. So I do not see this potential sale of AEG as putting the city at any risk at all.
All right, now if you can, just go through the bond structuring portion of this agreement and the contingencies that are in place should the interest rates rise by the time the project begins construction.
Certainly. As we discussed at the last committee, the total budget is $314 million. The scenario we're assuming not only covers that, but also covers any capitalized interest and the cost of issuance for a total of $338 million. This includes both the lease revenue bonds and the Mello-Roos bonds. The anticipation is that interest rates will continue to stay low. But of course, none of us are fortune tellers, and we also have to assume that there is a change in interest rates and provide that alternative to you as well. In which case, should the interest rates go up by 100 basis points, we have a shortfall of which we propose a structure of which AEG would cover approximately half of that shortfall, and the city would cover the second half. And the reason why we find this acceptable under this worst-case scenario is that there are a number of items in the actual design of the new convention center that are frankly enhancements that allow the convention center to be more effective and more competitive. The ballroom, as an example, we're also creating a connection between the convention center and Gildings Plaza that currently doesn't exist. We're strengthening the security features on the older section of the convention center. So all of those things combined are things that we think currently there's a huge opportunity to make the convention center more effective. And so we're recommending taking care of those costs under the worst case scenario, assuming that the interest rates actually go up. The most likely scenario is that interest rates are going to go down, and if they go up, they probably won't go as high as what we've laid out in the worst case scenario, so it'll be somewhere in between. Ultimately, we won't know what the actual rates are until we issue the debt, and at that point, depending on whether or not there's a shortfall at all, we would come to you with a recommendation of how to address that.
Okay, thank you very much. If you would stay there for a second, both of you, and if Mr. Lywicki, I know if you can come up now. Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. Lywicki to speak, and then we can spend time asking all of them questions. Yeah, I'd like to do it like that. So, Mr. Lywicki, somebody let him in.
Councilpersons.
Just for the record, identify yourself, even though everybody already knows you.
Well, I think I'm that character guy that we're just referring to make sure I don't have any convictions or felonies. I'm Tim Lywicki. I'm the president and CEO of AEG.
And who are you with?
I'm with AEG. But
no, that guy over there.
Ted Fickray, Chief Legal and Development Officer for AEG.
So, Mr. Lywicki, you've had a chance to hear what our CLA and our CAO have said with respect to the sale of AAG. And from your perspective, what does it mean for Farmers Field?
Well, first, let me apologize for the disturbance and the disruption of the process. That's my fault. I'll take full blame for that. By no means were we trying to ultimately do anything that would take away from what is our commitment and your commitment, which is bringing the NFL back to LA, and in particular, getting Farmers Field and the Convention Center built. Second of all, what we have told people is we would prefer this come out before you vote than after you vote, no matter what kind of disturbance we may have created by the announcement occurring when it did. Far better to get it out there in advance of your vote so you know this is a process that Mr. Anschutz is currently going through. As to the sale process itself, as you all know, we have a land lease as part of this Farmers Field agreement for the land that we are leasing from the city for 55 years. Mr. Anschutz would be 128 years old by the end of that land lease. We were going to go through a sale inevitably. This is not a family trust or a family foundation that owns this asset. It's an ongoing concern in the Anschutz Corporation. We were always going to have an exit strategy. Our opinion on the management team is that this is a process that was far better served today so that we have long-term predictability, not just for the city, but for the NFL when we make this project a reality. Walking into a potential partner owner of a team and walking into the NFL commissioner and the other 31 owners and having the ability of an owner that is going to see this as a long-term marathon and a long-term commitment was far better than thinking that Mr. Anschutz at some point or another in the near future would be seeking an exit strategy. The management team at AEG that you've been dealing with for 20 years is intact. The management team that is now before you for the fourth development agreement between our company and this city is the same. And this is a management team that has all now extended their commitments to run AEG day to day for the next 5 years. So I understand it's a disturbance, but the reality is, one, better to come now than after the vote so that you don't feel like we didn't disclose information. And secondly, I can tell you in our conversations with the NFL and the owners that we're talking to, it is far better now that we walk in the door with an owner that is the new owner committed to a long-term commitment to the city, to the NFL, and to Farmers Field. This is an advantageous step forward for this process.
So I have a question or comment for anybody who might be listing as a successor in interest. What assurances, I know you have contracts that are signed to extend 5 years for your top management team. What assurances do you have that someone won't come in and just say, look, we're going to pay you your contract now, sit down and, be quiet?
The most important assurance of all, which is Mr. Anschutz, and he feels strongly, as I do, that we've made a commitment on Farmers Field. It's an important vision, as to, and maybe even more importantly, the fixing the convention center. And Mr. Anschutz has made it clear he is only interested in selling this asset if we can find the right buyers that are equally committed to the vision of what we want to do by expanding LA Live with Farmers Field and the Convention Center. And he's committed to making sure we find the right owners, and I'm committed to making sure that the new partners that come in are capable, willing, and most importantly, passionate about the vision that we're creating for Farmers Field, for the Convention Center, and for the return of the NFL to LA.
So tell us all about the process to complete approvals and to acquire a team from the NFL, and please include a few bits of information about the timing of that.
Once we're done here, and it's critical that we demonstrate once and for all to the NFL and to the 32 owners that LA, the city, LA, the citizens, LA, the legal process, and AEG, the company, can get this deal done. And I believe that this week we're going to take a very important, the most important step forward since we lost the NFL almost 20 years ago to bring them back. We'll demonstrate that we are lockstep with you on a vision to bring the NFL back here. Secondly, it is not lost on them, and I'm sure not lost on Miguel and Jerry. We have just entered into the most aggressive deal in the history of the NFL to build a stadium. We are going to pick up 100% of the cost of the stadium, 100% of the risk of operation of the stadium, and there are no public subsidies coming back to us as part of this process. In addition, we are going to stand behind the improvements that will make LA one of the top 10 convention point of destinations in the industry again by fixing our convention center once and for all. That kind of momentum means that we can now go with certainty to the NFL and to the teams that we believe are not going to get a stadium built in their local community and begin a constructive conversation on how we get them to LA. We are prepared, and new ownership will be prepared to take a piece of the team if necessary. And AEG, the corporation, has the wherewithal today to go build Farmers Field and satisfy every commitment that has been asked out of us from the city as to the financing and as to the ability to build this project and get it done. What we need now is we need to go find a team. And we will take the biggest step forward and create the most amount of momentum if we have the ability of going lockstep with the city now and saying we are done with the environmental process, we're done with the legal process, we're done with the community process. We now are committed to building the stadium and getting a team, and we're prepared with the new owners to take a piece of a team if necessary in order to get them here.
Okay, now, there continues to be discussions around this other proposal in the other city of industry. What is the status of that project, and does this situation here cause any disruption from the perspective of the NFL?
I'm not certainly. I have not been elected to speak on their behalf,
yes,
and they'll tell you that if you don't believe it.
Yeah, no, I do believe it.
I believe there are all kinds of issues they have, including hundreds of millions of dollars of subsidies in that project for an interchange on the freeway. I'm not sure that funding is in place with the demise of a redevelopment fund. In addition to that, let's talk about the uniqueness of downtown LA. As much as people will question whether or not the stadium is being built in the right place, in reality, it's the perfect place. There are many days we do 100,000 people at LA Live. We can handle the traffic and we can handle the parking by making sure we schedule properly. There's no corporation that has built more private stadiums and arenas in the world than AEG. There is no place in the NFL today where you have a 100-acre campus with a convention center, Farmers Field, Staples Center, Nokia Theater, and Gilbert Lindsay Plaza with the ability of hosting Super Bowls, Final Fours, and qualification games for the World Cup. It is a unique point of destination. Add to that the hotels that I believe will come because of this project, and we can look the NFL in the eye and now say to them, there's not only a better fan experience, and there's no better fan experience anywhere in the NFL for the 8 games a year, but for Super Bowls, we finally have a point of destination where the majority of people will have a chance to either walk, take light rail, or experience the campus without necessarily having to get into their cars. So we find that the view and the vision that we've created here make this one of the most unique points of destinations, not just in the NFL, but for special events. We don't really look at the city of industry and get too worried. This has always been making the right deal with this city, guaranteeing the taxpayers they won't be at risk, and then turning to the NFL and making them understand the track record of AEG is not that we'll just get it built. More importantly, we will operate with great success for a long period of time. If you look at the success we've had with our teams in our building, including the Kings and the Stanley Cup, I got to get that in there, you will see that we have the ability to go to the NFL and guarantee them 20 years plus of a commitment to make this one of the most valuable, one of the most exciting, and one of the most respected franchises in all of the league. There's no organization that has that kind of wherewithal and experience like we do. And by the way, that management team is not going anyplace. We're committed to this long term. We're going to cut that ribbon in 2017.
Mm-hmm. So you have a serious local hire goal in this package, and you've negotiated a very, what I would consider to be a robust community benefits package. Can you talk a little bit about that package and then your plans for reaching out to Pico Union and the surrounding areas of South Los Angeles? And I think included in this package are funds for job training, and how those funds would be allocated and what organizations. I think you have a number of community partners.
Yes, so let me start with, I feel awkward doing this, but I will tell you that the CLA and the CAO have done a pretty good job here. For example, When we started with a convention center, and now where we have ended with a convention center, they've gotten another $80 million out of us for the improvement of that center to make it world class. That cost us millions of dollars a year of additional revenue that we have to generate in order to backstop that expenditure. So they've done a admirable job of not only making this the best deal ever cut by a city for an NFL team, but to the best of my knowledge, it's the first time a private sector has ever stepped in and backstopped the expansion of the convention center. And let me make this very clear, because I know there's much speculation. If you choose in the future to go to private management, we have to bid on that. We have absolutely no commitments from anyone, and we're going to have to put forth the best proposal to win that bid. We may end up funding a convention center that may be privately managed, and we don't even manage it. We're aware of that risk. As to the community, we have gone aggressively over the last 2 years and had over 200 meetings with the community, trying to understand what it is that's important to them. This will be the most green, environmentally built stadium in the history of the NFL. We're committed to that. We are committed to creating jobs, labor union jobs, not just for the construction of Farmers Field, but for the convention center. We're working with millions, tens of millions of dollars worth of improvement to the transportation system, including a major renovation of the Pico Light Rail Station, which will be next to Farmers Field. We're working with additional mitigation measures that will minimize the impact of transportation during those 8 football games, hopefully 7 Sunday afternoons and 1 weeknight. More important to me is, as a community, we used to be so proud of the cranes that we had. And we've lost that. And what, instead of me talking about our commitment, what I'd like to do, if you would bear with me for 1 minute, is I have a gentleman by the name of John Murphy here. And we have to put people back to work. And I feel partially responsible that we had a 7-year run at LA Live where we were building things and employing tens of thousands of people. And now we have a 40% unemployment in the trades alone. So can I, if I may...
Let me, Mr. Murphy, you'll be the only one to talk, and then we have to go back to letting the other members of the committee ask questions of the people who are at the table. We have a lot of cards here today, so if you can do it in a minute.
Great.
But don't leave. You're going to...
I'm not leaving.
All right,
can I
great.
call John Murphy
He's
up
right
here?
there. He's right
He's
behind.
an iron worker. John.
Yeah, he's right behind you. Go ahead. You can speak into the lectern.
My name's John Murphy, Sr. I'm a second-generation iron worker, and I've been in iron going on 8 years, and I've been off work for absolutely nothing. I've lost my car, bills are behind, I have 2 small kids, and I really need to get back to work. We really need these jobs yesterday.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so Mr. Reyes, why don't we start with you?
One, I want to thank our staff for their hard work in putting all these documents together. We've been through several meetings at the committee level. We have many discussions about this project. I want to thank Tim Lewick and AEG for their hard work and making sure that we do address the needs of the city. And the bottom line for me is the issue of jobs in a manner that does bring forth the type of program and projects that will allow us to establish this domino effect, this multiplier impact that should affect all communities surrounding AEG, surrounding Staples, surrounding Farmers Field. To that end, I still want to look at some of the language and how we're looking at these improvements. That's still a concern for me. I look at some of the documents here, and the corridor improvement past the freeway is something I have always focused on. And that, to me, speaks to how we motivate and trigger economic development opportunities on the other side of the freeway. Mr. Lewick and myself had this conversation at the very beginning. We talked about the safety issues. We talked about the impact of parking. Unfortunately, I was ill the day we were supposed to go out there and actually look at preventive measures, and I actually understand that Mr. Lewick was out there by himself, well, not by himself, but himself, making sure that the limousines weren't parking on a residential pocket, so I appreciate that. But it's unsettling, and I'll be real frank. To me, it's kind of like we're and I go through this a lot, when I have a developer come to the office and say, we're going to build this scenario, we're going to build this facility, and they are going to ensure mitigation so that they can have those increased entitlements, enhanced entitlements. Then I ask them, well, then we need a development agreement. We need a contract to make sure that once you get your entitlement, you don't turn around and flip it and sell it to someone else. Because there's uncertainty at that point. So that contract is very important. My faith is that the CLA and the CAO have done their due diligence to make sure that Mr. Anschutz, because you mentioned Mr. Anschutz several times, Mr. Lewicki, that his commitment, and this is where I'm a little hazy on the bonds. I understand there's not supposed to be one general fund dollar going to this project, and that the bonds are going to be essentially processed to build up this facility by Mr. Anschutz. But if he's not in the picture, is the future buyer going to make that commitment? So that's one question. I look at the sale, because the numbers I saw in the press was it's up for sale for about $7 billion. The actual AEG, and what I'm trying to get at is the new person coming in, the new entity, the new owner, are they going to, one, buy the facility, all our commitments, and still have enough money to build the stadium? How are we going to, that's what I'm trying to understand, is how do we create that certainty for these jobs? To me, I'd hate to go down this road, get a new owner, and then we're in a position where there's no more money and the jobs we talked about are no longer there because of the lack of funds. Now we have to step up and bring in more money to the table. Can we get some kind of executive summary that gets to these key points?
Well, let me take a stab at addressing your question, and perhaps Mr. Lewicki or Mr. Santana might want to add something to this. Again, in terms of the city and the creation of jobs, again, what this is all about is leveraging an NFL franchise and the construction of the event center to upgrade and expand the convention center to make it competitive. I mean, that from the city's standpoint is what this is all about. The agreements are very tight in terms of what the commitments that have to be made. Any buyer that is going to step in is going to have the financial wherewithal in order to fulfill that commitment, and the city will get confirmation that the financial wherewithal is there. Again, the city is taking no risk at all in building the event center. The city is not financing the convention center. The city is not issuing bonds for the event center. The city is issuing bonds for the convention center. And 3/4 of the money from those bonds are going to be paid for from ground leases, from the event center and the parking, and from mellow roof taxes on LA Life property. So the city bonds are strictly used for the city convention center.
I understand that, but physically and design-wise, they go hand in hand, correct? The stadium's design, convention's design, are behaving as one entity, because that's what makes it desirable to be here.
Yes,
I recall about a year and a half ago, we had a study where there was observations that, like in Atlanta, conventions and stadiums don't work together, that they have problems with scheduling events because of that conflict. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen here, because I'm assuming our design, our due diligence overcame those negative elements that took away from that scenario. So, from the big picture point of view, I'm a Joe citizen. I think the question is pretty clear. We're about to find someone that will pay for the price that Mr. Anschutz wants, plus the money to do all the improvements and to provide all those jobs. Is that the assumption here?
That is going to be the requirement. But again, I think the point is that none of this works without an NFL franchise. The city is not at risk. The city doesn't end up any worse than it is today.
That's the trigger.
But the city benefits by the securing of the NFL franchise. And as Mr. Lewicki stated in his remarks, that he believes, and we've had many discussions, I share that belief, that the opportunity for an NFL franchise is enhanced through, I mean, if the change in ownership was going to happen at some point anyway, it's best that it happens now so that it's very clear when they go to the NFL to get a team, the NFL understands who it is that they're going to be working with over the long term. So I believe that our opportunities are actually enhanced to get these jobs and to get this construction done.
I understand the strategy. I'm looking out for the interest of making sure the jobs are created. And yes.
If I could add, one way of looking at this, that this is not a marriage between Mr. Anschutz and this council and this mayor. This is a marriage between two institutions, AEG and the City of Los Angeles. And those two institutions will be here for the next 55 years. It's a long-term marriage. During that time, there will be changes both on our side. There will be several mayors, several councils, and there are going to be changes on their side, different owners. And so from the very beginning, this agreement was established understanding that this is a long-term marriage. So whoever chooses to buy AEG at the end of the day has to agree to all of the terms that this marriage is established in through the contract. Now, the city isn't obligated to move forward if certain conditions are made. And those conditions, as Jerry indicated, start with having a team, also require that that they secure all the financing, and provide a number of criteria in which ultimately AEG, regardless of who owns it, has to meet. And until we issue the bonds, the marriage isn't consummated. And so once the next phase of it is, of course, through the next 55 years, the requirements of keeping it as an event center, keeping an NFL team there, maintaining a shared use agreement with the convention center, because as you indicated, they're contiguous spaces. All of those stay in place. And the default that future councils and future mayors will have, should the next AEG owner, not 10 years, but 20 years from now, decide to do different, is that ultimately you could declare a default on the agreement, and the City of Los Angeles is the owner of an event center. And so the agreement was designed to protect not just the taxpayers of today, but the taxpayers for the next 55 years.
So the next owner will pay the price that's there for the sale of AEG, plus be committed to paying for the improvements and the build-out of this facility. Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Can I have the planning director here? Because in the documents I see...
Councilman, can I add one last
Sure,
thing?
please.
Please keep in mind, we're not going away. We're a company that has 25,000 employees. Whether we're worth $8 billion or $15 billion, and I've heard both, the reality is we are a standalone organization and always have been. It is AEG that stood behind Staples Center, LA Live, and the Marriott Ritz Hotel. It is AEG at the end of the day that owns assets like the Kings. We are committed to this community. We are headquartered here. We paid almost $100 million in taxes as a company to the state, city, and county last year, and we've given $80 million from our foundation back to the community since we started. So this, I echo what they said. This is making a deal with not only a multi-billion-dollar company that's headquartered here, but they have a 20-year track record. We never entered into an agreement with all of these other development agreements that we entered into with the City of Los Angeles between the Anschutz Corporation and the City of LA. It was always AEG and the City of LA. And we have lived up to not only every agreement, but hopefully done better than that. And we are the company that will be here long term that will put the wherewithal of our multi-billions of dollars behind making sure we finish this project. It is a commitment that AEG has to this city, and it's a commitment we will stand behind for the next 55 years.
So, Mr. Lewicki, when we look at, because it's been a fascinating evolution, seeing how LA Staples came together and looking at all those pieces, how they have been able to generate this whole new environment in downtown. We've got 50,000 new residencies in downtown LA. I mean, it's an amazing transformation. But I recall back then we had, the city owns that piece of the piece of the convention center where the stadium would lie. And there lies about entitlements that are like 300,000 square feet of entitlements, correct? On that site?
On the site that we currently have Staples Center?
No, on the site where the parking garage exists.
Yes.
What happens to those entitlements?
Any previous agreement we've entered into, whether it be Staples Center, LA Live, the parking garage, we will honor and continue to implement those agreements with the City of Los Angeles. None of those go away in the new deal. We just simply are adding an additional land lease on the ground underneath Farmers Field and then a backstop of the convention center for the improvement of that particular hall. All of the other agreements not only stay in place, but I don't believe we really have much of an impact on the other agreements at all.
Gotcha. So those 300,000 stays with the city, those entitlements?
Well, I'll let your folks talk about that.
But I guess, are you aware that we have that level of entitlement on that parking garage site?
Are you referring to air rights? And perhaps planning is better to address this, but we are...
Well, let's table this question, and I'll follow up
Okay.
between now. Yeah.
We'll take that up in one. Mr. Huizar, do you have any questions? We are on item 2 right now, and once the council members get done asking their questions, and I will call the public speaker cards, then we will table that item because we're required to vote on items 1A through E first. So if Mr. Huizar has any questions, and then we'll go to Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just briefly, again, not to belabor the point, but it's when I heard first the news, I said, "Well, why should the city enter into a complicated deal with someone we don't know that may even be around later?" But if we look at the ownership, that's different from the management. And so my concern is we've been negotiating with the management of AEG, and whether the new owner will be obligated under whatever terms we negotiate, but there are nuances and understandings that may not be written in paper, or we may have some understandings as we went through the negotiations. So my concern is, and there's never really any guarantees, but is there any guarantee that the existing management will stay even after we have new ownership for AEG?
Well, I certainly hope so. From our standpoint, we are all committed. We all just signed new agreements. These are long-term contracts. So we have about 12 members of our executive committee. All 12 members have extended. So it's the same management team that's been here from day one. Same management team, by the way, that's carried on every negotiation in the history of the relationship between our company and the city. Further, keep in mind, and I want to reemphasize what both the CAO and the CLO said, that we have to come back before them again on our financing plan. So they get another approval right on how we structure the financing within Farmers Field, and we have to come back with them and prove to you, the city, that we have a long-term lease in place that will be lock solid, and we'll make sure that we have a team in place for the duration of the financing on that stadium. Two different processes we had to come back and address here. And my guess is the new ownership will be in place. The new ownership will be part of that process, and you'll have every opportunity to make sure that the city has comfort that our financing plan in place is not only one that will guarantee long-term success, but has a backstop mechanism to make sure we do not fault on our own financing nor the backstop for the bonds for the convention center.
Mm-hmm. And given the new contracts by many of the management team of AEG, so we could honestly tell the public that whatever negotiations occurred, the same management team at AEG will be around to implement.
It is our expectation, our hope, and certainly Mr. Anschutz's hope. And I say honestly, based on the conversations we've had with some of the interested parties, I think everyone shares the view that this management team will remain in place. We will be here long term, and I'm hoping that we will all be here to cut the ribbon for Farmers Field in 2017.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Ms. Perry. I first wanted to mention John Ferraro, who's this chamber's named for. It was John Ferraro who stood up strong and tall to bring the Los Angeles Arena, now known as Staples Center. You look back in the history of the city, many tough decisions are made, but they were made because they had a vision. In 1928, when they built this building, the tallest building west of Chicago, just after that, they invited the world to the 32 Olympic Games. And I look back at so many things we've done big things. and it's so important. Now, Tim, I got a couple questions for you. First of all, in NFL films, we've got to remember the great Steve Sabol and all he did. He loved Los Angeles because he loved the weather, he loved the sky, he loved the beauty of the Coliseum. I'm sure he would love a new stadium here in Los Angeles. But let me ask you a question. In the games, why do the coaches, when they do this call to play, why do they do that? Why do they put the card over the mouth?
They're probably trying to make sure you're not reading their lips and don't know the next play.
Well, no, the difference is if it's a running play, it's a shorter call than a long play. If it's 36 blast on 2, that's all you say. But if it's a longer play, XYZ, post, curl left, it's much longer. That's what a coach told me. So the why I tell you that is because we have to have a game plan that not that all of us, and I support the steel workers, I support the workers who built this city and continue to build this city. I supported Mulholland when he built the aqueduct to bring water to the Pueblo. This is what drove Los Angeles. We could do this, but we have to have a game plan that shows what the play is and that people outside this building believe that we could score. That we could score with this stadium, because we scored with Staples. We scored with the development, the adaptive reuse of downtown. When Richard Ridd was the mayor, he pushed that through, which was so important. And what we would be without Staples, just a parking lot right now. So it's been tremendous. So I just want to ask you in your development here, and I do support this concept wholly, but over the weekend, you know what's great about when you're out in the district? People walk up to you. People don't know you, and they say, what about this? And people walk to me and say, Tom, they support the concept, but they're fearful of what it would cost. There needs to be a chart that says, this will happen and this won't happen, that the public understands clearly so that they know that we're making a great investment in the future. Because think if we walked away from the Olympic Games in '76 in Montreal, cost overruns, but yet this council stood tall, Mayor Bradley, John Ferraro, others, and it was an 8-7 votes, members. 8-7 votes on Olympic. That changed the whole dynamic. The 84 Games are one of the best events in this city, close to what the shuttle provided the city on Friday. That was pretty close, that one moment when the shuttle flew over, which is very special. So our work is to be able to convince everyone we're doing the right thing. And Mr. Miller, you're a tough guy. Mr. Santana, you're a tough guy. So you got to make sure we have the tough structure in there, and you're an effective business leader to be able to provide for the city this new opportunity for another golden age for Los Angeles in sports. And at that time, maybe the NFL will say they want to be here. But I think we got to put the plan together to show that it works right now. And we have a lot of trust in you, Mr. Lewicki, and your staff that has worked so diligently in transforming Los Angeles. But we have to have that trust rock solid as we go forward, because I truly believe that it will be very strong for Los Angeles if this is done and done right. And I just want to ask more questions as we get the word from the planning department and others.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And
Last question. Whose number is this? 212-450-2000.
I know whose number that is.
All right. Who is it? What street are they on? Just tell me.
I'm the Avenue of Americas. Thank
All
you
right.
very
It's
much.
the NFL. I just want to test if he's connected.
Okay. Very good. We do have one speaker card on this particular item. This is item 2. And we have a lot of cards today, so I'm going to keep it to 1 minute per person. Alan Kabaker.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm here to represent the owner of 940 South Figueroa, the Variety Arts Theater building. This is a building that is currently vacant because it hasn't benefited from being supported by development that's gone on around the area at Staples and LA Live. I've had a meeting with AEG, and it looks promising. I think there will be some consensus between our companies because they would benefit from using that facility, 75,000 square feet, to complement their hotel development, their event planning. It's got facilities for restaurant or beverage service. It's got facilities for special events in a theater setting with seats. And I would look forward to the city encouraging AEG to reach out to us and make that building work in the future.
Thank you very much. All right, we are going to hold item 2 on the table right now, and then we're going to go to items 1A through E, and let's see, Mr. Miller and Mr. I guess Planning Department will come up for this one. Okay, Mr. LeGrand, why don't you come on up? And will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Item number 1, City Planning Commission Report, Environmental Impact Report, and Addition, Mitigation, Monitoring, and Reporting Program, Statement of Overriding Considerations, and related California Environmental Quality Act findings. General Plan Amendment to change the Regional Center Commercial Land Use designation of portions of Staples Center to public facilities, and to amend the General Plan Land Use Map for the Central City Community Plan to add a footnote establishing the proposed Convention and Event Center specific plan as a land use regulatory document for the project, and provide correspondence of the public facilities designation with CEC's zoning designation, designate Convention Center specific plan area on the community plan specific map, and to reclassify a segment of 12th Street as a local street, a vesting zone change from PF-4D-O and C2-4D-O to parens Q, CEC-4D-O-SN Convention and Events Center Specific Plan, et al.
Okay, thank you very much, and I want to thank the planning staff wholeheartedly for working with AEG in a thorough and extremely thoughtful process for developing this community benefits package. I'm particularly pleased at the $1.5 million that will be set aside for community planning in the South Los Angeles and in the Pico Union areas. This is certain to enhance and to support growth in both areas that are immediately adjacent to the project. By investing in these planning efforts, we can ensure that the growth in these adjacent areas supports the people who call these areas home, and ensures that we continue to grow and support our workforce communities. I'm also very pleased that AEG has shown the willingness to support the next generation of Angelenos, young people, through the development of scholarship funds and additional programs for young people, such as college internships and job mentorship. Now, when we worked on LA Live and the Convention Center Hotel, we built a great partnership with Los Angeles Trade Technical College and some local youth job training programs. And I hope that we continue to enhance and strengthen these projects moving forward. With Farmers Field, community benefits agreements are only successful when they are done in collaboration and with the cooperation and input from the people affected. Now, over 200 public meetings have been held, 1,000 comments have been received and responded to, and it's clear that community stakeholders have been a part of the discussion throughout the process. I understand this is going to be the first stadium development agreement or project in the history of the NFL to ever include a community benefits program. So once again, Los Angeles is ahead of the curve. I think this is a great accomplishment, and I am really pleased that our city team has done such a great job. I'm also impressed with the carbon neutrality and best in NFL trip reduction commitments that are part of this agreement. This, too, is the first of its kind. It's my understanding that no other stadium project has ever made these types of commitments on either offsetting vehicle carbon emissions or in increasing, which is critical for our future, increasing the use of public transportation to be the best in the NFL. So again, I'm very pleased that we're leading the way. And Mr. LeGrand, if you would lead off with your team in discussing the planning issues, and then we'll go to the council members and the speaker cards after that.
Good morning, Michael LeGrand for the record. First of all, I'd like to thank the council members for their continued guidance on this project. We wouldn't be here today without your involvement on this committee. Very early on, you gave us specific instructions for us on things to look at and areas to focus, and we have done so, and we're happy to be here today. This project comes before you that's been well vetted. We've had many community meetings. We've had a very thorough environmental impact report. Our staff has spent countless hours working with the applicant, community stakeholders, as well as this committee to bring before you a project we can really be proud of for the future of Los Angeles. This project's been reviewed and vetted at a higher level than we've seen any major project like this in this region. One of the reasons as this has taken place, the team of planners I have surrounding me, led by John Foreman, have spent countless hours, weekends, council vacations to make sure we can meet this timeline to bring football back to Los Angeles. We're very proud of the Planning Commission's unanimous support of this project and recommendations that are before you here today, including the zone change, the development agreement, the signage issues, and the general plan amendment and the vesting zone change. We're very excited about this project. We feel we've worked in cooperation with the applicant and really pushed to make sure that this project is something that reflects all the visions of Angelenos in Los Angeles. Things such as design have been put in the forefront. Normally the kind of specificity on design that we have in this project don't come until the years later when there's construction drawings. We've had the chance to have the applicant invest up front to give us assurances that things such as the Pico Passage turn out to be a very pleasant environment, making sure Gilbert Lindsay Plaza is activated and has uses that the entire community can enjoy, that it's something that reflects upon the goals and objectives of the convention center, as well as introducing a new stadium concept to the campus down there at LA Live. We made sure that the protections for the city and our rights are preserved in this agreement. We've also made sure that the community's voice is heard through the public benefits agreement. We have a very strong package before you today that we're proud to represent for the Planning Commission's unanimous approval, and we're here to answer any questions, and we have a short presentation we'd like to walk you through if you're so inclined.
Why don't you do the short presentation now, and then we'll go to the council members and go
Perfect.
to public speaker cards.
I'd like to introduce John Foreman, Senior City Planner.
Council members, John Foreman with the Los Angeles Planning Department. First of all, besides the staff that you see sitting here, just within the Planning Department, we also had a lot of help from our systems staff to our GIS staff, our graphics staff, and our Planning Commission office, who also worked very hard and diligently evenings and weekends to help us achieve the timeline that brought the stadium to us here today. So it took a major effort. There were also, though, a number of meetings that we participated in. The Planning Commission formed a subcommittee, and we met with this subcommittee of commissioners to brief them on the progress of the stadium as it went forward. Also, the mayor created an ad hoc committee of, I'm sorry, you're the ad hoc committee. The mayor created a vision team and an infrastructure team. And we met with these teams to look at the infrastructure needs of downtown that the stadium would create, and also to look at the urban design of the stadium and how it would relate to its surroundings. Our staff, while working on this project, also worked on a number of other major projects. 2 years ago, when the department went through its reorganization, we created a major projects unit. That unit also worked on the village at Westfield Topanga, which came to council last year. The Century Plaza Hotel expansion, which went to the Planning Commission a couple of months ago. And this Thursday, we're going to the Planning Commission on the NBC Universal Evolution Specific Plan. Staff also worked on a number of other mid-range projects, the Target Sunset Project, 10,000 Santa Monica Barlow Hospital. So I just wanted the City Council to be aware that while we were working on this very important major project, there were also a number of other projects in the city that were also moving forward and getting attention at the same time. So with that, we'll turn it over to Henry Chu.
Yes, good morning. Henry Chu, the Planning Department. The City Planning Commission held its meeting on September 13, 2012, and that included a public hearing. There were 85 people who filled out speaker cards, and 65 people actually came up and spoke. The meeting lasted 10 and a half hours and included issues that included design of the South Hall Plaza, Gilbert Lindsay Plaza, the parking garages, and Pico Passage. The City Planning Commission resolved these issues by requiring the applicant to come back to the Department of City Planning with final designs, refining the development agreement, modifying some of the benefits of the development agreement, and added conditions and strengthened findings. Just a couple of housekeeping issues. The applicant has submitted a letter that's before you, and staff has had time to review these requests and changes, and we agree. These are just typos and just capturing some of the conditions that were stated at Planning Commission. And also for the record, as advised by the City Attorney, the City Planning Department would like to correctly state a recommendation from the determination report for CPC 2012-851, and I'll just read it into the record. Recommend that the City Council approve the requested specific plan amendment pursuant to LAMC Section 1157G to modify Section 4 and Section 6B4 of the LASED specific plan to allow development of the Convention Center expansion parcel with any other use permitted by the specific plan upon the earlier of the issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy for the new hall of the Convention Center or October 21st, 2021. And staff has also submitted a letter to the council members. It's requests to modify the statement of overriding considerations to reflect the changes in the development agreement. And with that, I'd like to hand it off to Ms. Karen Hu.
Good morning, Karen Hu, LA City Planning. And I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of the environmental process. And I just want to emphasize that this is a public review process that we have for the environmental document. So it was actually reviewed by the public before we started on writing the EIR, as well as after we prepared the draft EIR. It was sent to owners and residents within 500 feet of the project site, as well as a very long list of interested parties. And I think, as Henry mentioned, we had 65 speakers on the project giving us testimony, as well as 104 written comments. We responded to those comments, and so those comments and our responses are included in the final EIR that you have before you. 192 mitigation measures and project design features are going to be incorporated into the design and operation of the project, but I do have to advise you that 8 areas remain potentially significant. And with that, I will turn the mic to Kit Awakuni.
Good morning, Kit Awakuni, City Planning. The City Planning Commission approved 2 cases. The first case was CPC 2012-084-GPA-VZC-SP-SN-DA. The entitlements associated with that case were several general plan amendments, a vesting zone change to the CEC zone over the entire campus, a specific plan to regulate uses, a signed supplemental use district, a new extensive development agreement, and the Staples Center development agreement amendment. The second case that the the Planning Commission approved was CPC 2012-0851-SP-DA, and those were entitlements dealing with the LASED specific plan and development. Both were being amended to remove the restriction on the Convention Center expansion parcel, which currently limits uses to Convention Center uses only. The amended language will allow any use permitted in the LASED specific plan to go in place once the temporary CFO for the new hall or October 21st, 2021 occurs, whichever is first. And with that, I'll hand it over to Lucy Ibarra.
Good morning, Lucy Ibarra with the Planning Department. As part of the agreement with the Event Center and AEG in particular, we developed a development agreement that included, as you mentioned, an extensive community benefits program. Among that was a commitment to local hire and a project labor agreement within a 5-mile radius of the project site. There was also a commitment of $2 million to the City Planning Department towards land use analyses in the area and the vicinity. The commitment of $200,000 towards a small business enterprise. There was an expansion of the Pico Union Streetscape improvements of $500,000, in addition to a plan that would help integrate the project to the neighboring Pico Union neighborhood. There was a commitment of $1.75 million of green space and parks and recreational facilities. And for the youth in particular living in targeted areas of the development, there was the creation of job shadowing program, $1 million towards a college scholarship fund, a summer youth program for students in the vicinity as well of $50,000, and an outreach program specifically targeted to those youth in those areas. There was also a commitment by the applicant to provide a dog park near the project at LA Liveway and Chikern Court during established hours. At the City Planning Commission on September 13th, the Planning Department recommended approval of the project because it met several of the land use and policies and objectives of the community plan for Central City. Among them was that it complemented the adjacent uses of downtown in that vicinity, the Convention Center and LA Live. It was an appropriate infill development that encouraged the 24-hour character that we're trying to develop within downtown. It complemented the 2010 Master Bicycle Plan and the Downtown Street Guidelines. It made a commitment to do real planning initiative of the City Planning Commission. It included bicycles and bicycle transit facilities, landscaping, walkable development, and a commitment towards LEED Gold and LEED certified development. The benefits, as I mentioned earlier, are for a term of 35 years, and it included community benefits program and the commitment towards short-term and long-term jobs. A lot of the local hiring commitment that's in the DA is geared towards both construction and permanent jobs, with 30% towards construction and 50% towards operations of local hiring. There's also going to be improvements to the Gilbert Lindsay Plaza and extending into the South Hall Plaza. In addition to that is the $10.3 million to the Pico Station and working with Metro with that. And in addition, this project is anticipated to be a catalyst for future development, and in particular hotels within the city, for the greater benefit of this portion of downtown.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Reyes, would you like to start off? And we'll go through the council members first, then I'm going to go to the cards, because there's quite a few.
In item 1A, there is a reference to 285,552 square feet of rentable area, exhibit space at West Hall Building. And that's the area where the Farmers Field will be built on. Am I accurate on that in saying that?
Correct, you're accurate.
So what happens to that entitlement? What happens to the value of that land? Who stays with that value, and where does it go? I mean, I just want to understand.
Basically, I'll have John Foreman correct me for more details, but the way we look at this is that prior agreements being superseded, since we are getting a modernized convention center built over the Pico and connected to the stadium. So that prior agreement for the preservation of that land for future convention center expansion would be superseded by this agreement if you choose to enter into it.
When you say superseded, that means the value of that entitlement gets folded into the stadium?
Correct.
So is that added value that benefits the private company?
It's part of the benefit of the entire package being presented to you today and the accompanying business deal that the city's entering into.
So we didn't break down that value because we saw the advantage of building this Farmers Field and folded in that value into that deal?
Correct. That is something to consider as you look at the entire deal of the package being presented to you, is that this prior agreement is being superseded by the current business deal to expand the convention center in a different area than this had set it aside for.
Okay. And on the San Use District, who benefits from the allowable signage that will now be created in this district? Who actually receives the revenue from these new signs?
Yeah, we can have the CLA perhaps speak to the transactional items. We can briefly talk about that. In terms of the actual signage approvals that we have before you, a lot of the things we focus on are aesthetics, as well as the prior, there's a business deal for the convention center to have signage along the convention center that this entitlement actually encompasses. We're looking at the different types of technology being utilized, the light, the glare, to make sure the lights were done in a tasteful manner. As you know, one of the visions of downtown is to be a vibrant 24-hour city, and we feel that the signage is appropriate to get us to that type of activity. On the terms of the business deal, I'm not sure Mr. Foreman has information regarding the profits.
So you're going to describe the aesthetic impact of this. And that's not my question. My question really is...
For the CLA.
And we'll address that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Lucy Batter with the Planning Department. it was made very clear to us by the CAO and the CLA office that one of the transactional documents that are part of the bigger package of documents is a signage agreement where there'll be a mutual use of a very carefully coordinated use of those signs. And part of the signage agreement allows for some of the funds to be used towards the convention center, I think for the payment of the bonds and things of that nature. And they're here to elaborate, but essentially there is an agreement that specifically addresses the use of signage on both the convention center and event center site.
Do we have a summary of that agreement? Do we know, is it 50-50, 60-40? Well, I mean, what is it?
John Foreman, Planning. As you know, we looked at the land use aspects and forming the ordinances. It was the CLA and the CAO who looked at the...
Why don't we ask Mr. Miller to come up? So he's probably best suited to answer that question.
John, stay here.
You don't all have to leave. Just...
Yeah, there is a separate signage agreement that's part of the package. There is an agreement in terms of shared use. There are specific provisions relative to E3 and the convention center staff, both the interim director as well as the head of facilities was intimately involved in negotiating that agreement. We had it independently appraised. We had their signage rights independently appraised by our consultant, CSL. The entire value of that package is being converted into a mellow roost tax that is being used to support the convention center. So in essence, we're recapturing the value of the signage agreement with them through the levy of a tax that supports bonds that funds a portion of the center.
Okay. Can we get some kind of executive summary on what those dollars mean? What are the ballpark figures we're talking about?
The total, the initial annual payment is $6 million. There's an inflator on that. I believe it's 1 3/4 a year. I'd have to confirm the actual inflator. So over the term of the bonds, that's supporting, I believe, $94 million of the bonds that would be used to pay the convention center. So the Mellow Roost bonds plus the ground lease payments from the event center and the parking lots are paying about 3/4 of the cost of our convention center.
Okay, great. So at least now the public knows that the signs that are up there are helping to pay off our debt and improving the convention center. It's not just going just to the private entity, but to the public benefit in dealing with those debts.
Yes, and as well, the convention center has the ability to use certain signage for their purposes, for their exhibitors, et cetera. So it's mutually beneficial, and we are capturing the value.
Okay.
John Foreman, Planning. Kid Awakuni in our office worked with the appraiser who was working with the CLA and the CAO to look at the land uses that are currently at the site and in the downtown area and a history of the cases on the site to provide the appraiser with all of the information that they needed to advise the CLA and CAO staff. So.
Well, before we get to council, I'd like to see a copy and go over it with someone on the staff to explain to me how that's been itemized and how that's broken down. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Huizar and then Mr. Labange, and then we'll go to the cards, and we have quite a few. So just to reiterate, I'll keep everybody to 1 minute, and I'll call people up in groups.
Thank you, and no questions for now, but approximately how many, do we have a large, you said you have a large stack of
Yes.
public comment? I'll keep my questions on hold for now, thank you.
Mr. Labange.
Yeah, thank you. So we visioned that the convention center, the original 1971 convention center, disappears. I'm looking at you, Michael.
Yes.
And then that's where the stadium built. How much space is between the freeway and the actual structure?
The parking structure?
No, the football stadium.
Okay, between the football stadium and the parking structure, we have a diagram we may be able to show. It's approximately a couple hundred feet, about 125 feet, I estimate. My staff can correct me if I
How
got
many
that
yards is
wrong.
125 feet?
Well, it's not quite a football field.
I know, so you could throw a football from that stadium to the freeway.
Well, if you look at the elegant design of the stadium, there is some glass features that wouldn't allow for that to happen, but we hope
Will there be benefit to the view of the city from any part of the stadium? One of the prettiest views of the Coliseum is the peristyle, and that architecture is tremendous. Different era, different time, but now with these structures that they build, what do you envision on top? And is this design set in plan ready to go to 221 Figueroa to be reviewed?
Yeah, at this point in the process, these designs are pretty fleshed out in terms of aesthetics.
Let me ask a question. Did they take any advantage of the top of the stadium to look out? You ever been on top of the press
Yes.
box at the Coliseum?
Yes, I have.
What do you
They
see?
do take advantage.
What do you
see a
see?
beautiful vision
Beautiful
of
city.
downtown.
You got it. Is that opportunity there?
Yes, it is. And also
Okay.
for the convention goers, the way the stadium is sunk into the ground, it allows for you to walk out and see field level. And it's a very nice design that you more see at large college towns. To bring that to Los Angeles will be a huge benefit. Also, the contiguous floor place from the convention center into the stadium gives us that opportunity to become a top-tier convention destination. And the design of the stadium is, for such a large venue, is very walkable and allows for good views from the freeways as well as from downtown skylines. So we're really happy to see this design move forward. In terms of your question about is it ready to go issue permits, it's not that far along in terms of construction level details,
But it's
that
pretty
can happen
close.
very quickly. Yeah, the illustrative details of what we're going to see, what it's going to look like when it's built, have all been provided to us, and the applicant's done a great job working with us and working with the vision team to make sure those
What
are high
happens to
quality.
the 11th Street on-ramp to the freeway?
I believe there's some existing improvements being handled by Caltrans at this time.
I know, but
that are
that's for
extension from
18,000
LA
people
Live.
at Staples. That was
Correct.
before we got this thing. Does that street, is a public street on the west side of the arena still part of the plan?
Yes, I'll have my staff that worked on the environmental impact report discuss that further, but I believe it is.
Well, who could discuss that? Who's here from DOT?
We have Tom Carranza and staff in the back in this room from DOT here also.
All right, well, they don't be shy. Okay.
Well,
I just have to ask that question, Ms. Perry, because circulation is so important. Everybody feared Staples Center, but the amazing thing is because there's a grid of streets, everybody went 26 different intersections.
okay, why don't you
26
free up some
different ways.
seats for the transportation people so that Mr. Labange's questions can be answered?
As that question.
Go ahead, John.
And also, does anyone know if there's going to be restriping now from the just recent improvements of the north and southbound Harbor Freeway 110 in this corridor? Does anybody know that question at all?
We'll
They
see.
spent a lot of money doing a lot of things, but they haven't restriped anything.
Yeah, that's under Caltrans jurisdiction. We'll see if our colleagues
I
from DOT
understand,
may.
but you're over there
may have
together.
heard about it.
Okay. What's the street system around?
Well, my name is Tom Carranza with LADOT, and
Hi, Tom.
this is Wes Pringle, also
Wes.
with DOT. The plan does call for improving the 11th Street ramp up lane off the 110. It will modify the signal equipment and restripe the westbound approach. It'll add one left turn lane, one shared left-right lane, and exclusive right turn lane. So it's adding capacity at the
No,
ramp.
but from Venice Boulevard, or from Pico Boulevard, now you could go north from Pico to 11th Street. Will that public street remain there on the west side of what is now the convention center? Or will that street be removed?
No, the street will remain. There may be some street closures related to the traffic management of.
Yeah, of an
Right.
event.
But it will
But
remain.
there will be a public street to drive as you can right now. What's the
Right.
name of the street? Not
Cherry.
Georgia Street. Cherry?
It's LA Live Way.
LA Live Way?
Yeah, it used to be Cherry.
Used to be Cherry. So that will
LA
remain
Live Way
open.
provides access to the parking.
Okay,
garage.
let me ask you a question, Michael, because you mentioned Caltrans. Have you met with Caltrans at all?
Yes, we've had extensive conversation with the district office from Caltrans.
Right.
And they've been engaged through the environmental process.
Right, I think there needs to be some work done there, and I hope the continuation of the Harbor Freeway Expressway, which is going to become a toll road, which I wish it was just for the high-speed occupancy vehicles, or whatever that is, there continues into downtown. But the circulation is really key for that. And then also you mentioned the light rail situation. Is that to add capacity? The Chargers bring about 35,000 people, I think there was a playoff game, but there was a lot of people coming on their Jim Mills, and I forget the name of their system. What's their system called?
It's their above ground rail.
Right, okay, very good answer, Michael. You didn't know either. That's a good one to answer. The San Diego trolley that goes there brings a lot of people. How many do we estimate may take a trolley to that, or light rail?
I believe our estimates are about that 20% may actually take transit to get to the stadium. There are a number of enhancements that the Metro has worked on. In concert
They have to
with
do
the
enhancement
applicant.
to the power of the train too, right? Because the weight of the train, heavy rail could carry more people because it's designed in a way where light rail is lighter. So I think that's a question that we have to get answered with MTA to make sure it's not just the station stop, but it's also the train, the power train of that.
They're looking at capacity. They're actually adding platforms. We have some diagrams that show that, but we've been in extensive conversations with Metro regarding their needs for this. The applicant has agreed to invest in over $10 million along the Pico station for improvements. We've also working on wayfinding with the applicant to have people find their way north to the 7th Metro station, which is really the hub if people are coming from Hollywood or other parts of the district, like where your district resides. Many of them wouldn't need to get on at Pico to go one station or two stations to make the transfer. They can walk directly only a few blocks away with the beautiful climate we have. So we're working on wayfinding issues to get people to transit.
How many blocks is that, Mike?
It's 4 blocks.
4 blocks, okay.
And we're also working on the platform, making sure that there's also increased frequency in terms of how many trains travel, the capacity of those trains, that people aren't crossing the tracks in an unsafe manner. And I think we have a really good solution before you today to really try and make this a transit-rich area to help reduce our carbon footprint, but also to help the air quality in Los Angeles and have a great experience for our visitors and the current residents who still depend upon transit to get to work in and out every day.
I did know a lot of Expo line extension has helped USC at the Coliseum, where there's an option. 2 last questions there. One is on the convention center. The convention center's been briefed totally on this.
Correct.
And they support the efforts that were going. And then how much time is between the tear down? Is the new convention center built before the tear down comes? So that happens before. Last question. In the benefits plan for the community, in the stadium, are there any seats for boys and girls clubs, youth organizations, and any opportunity? I know at the Coliseum this last weekend I walked around, there were high schools selling at the concession stands to raise revenue for their high schools. Are those opportunities explored?
Our understanding is that AEG regularly practices in providing seats and opportunities for children to view games at Staples Center, and that they
right. But do they give you a number? I mean, you got numbers on everything. Do they give you a number? Are they going to give you 50 seats, 100 seats?
They didn't give us a number, but I welcome you to ask.
All right, get off your BlackBerries, Mr. Tanner and Mr. Lewicki. Give me a number. Just give me a number. What do you guesstimate? It's a 75,000 seat stadium. How many young people from Southern California may have an opportunity to see a pro game in the community seats of AEG?
Tom, we've given $80 million back to the community. We're not going to stop, but let me get a team first before I start giving away their tickets.
All right, but what would you guess? Just guess.
I don't know, because we don't have a team yet. But we are committed to continuing like we have with giving back to this community. That won't stop, I promise you.
I got it. Okay, so this is real important. The Rams had a great program back when they were here, Rams for Kids, and it was very special, and I'm sure they'll continue that program. But I wanted to get a number, but I didn't get a number, so we still got to get an audible out of Mr. Lewicki.
Okay, let's get a team, and in the meantime, let's move forward on the speaker cards. I'm going to call people up in groups, and we have 1 minute each for each speaker. First speaker will be Maria Elena Durazo with Ron Miller, Alan Kabaker, Doug Arsenault, and Kathy Ferrer.
Good morning. Thank you, Councilwoman, and members of the City Council representing the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor with 300 local unions. And 11 years ago, remind folks here, 11 years ago, a private multi-party community-based coalition negotiated the first ever community benefits agreement alongside what were going to be agreements to have living wage and unionized jobs at the Staples Arena. First time in the whole country, it was done here in LA, and it was done with AEG. In addition to what you and your staff are requiring and doing, I want you to know, Councilman Reyes, that there is an additional accountability system out there, and that is because there is such an extraordinary trust and strong relationship between AEG, this community, and labor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miller.
Good morning, Council. I'm Ron Miller with the LA Orange County Building Trades. I represent 140,000 craftsmen and women. And I got to say that 11 or 12 years ago, you couldn't walk down there at LA Live because it was a vacant lot. was a crime. It was a blight on the city of Los Angeles. AEG has done nothing but try to make this a world-class city. And they want to make a world-class convention center, and we need it. We desperately need to put these young men and women to work. You heard one earlier today. That's from one of the affiliate locals of the building trades. I could have paraded hundreds of them in here today that are in the process of losing their families, sleeping in their cars. We must get these guys and gals back to work. It's imperative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kabaker.
I'm Alan Kabacher with 940 Figueroa. Even though the city has no money invested, they do have the interests of the community property owners to protect. So I encourage the city to help me make our arrangements with AEG or their successor to lease the Variety Arts Center. A reuse of an existing large structure is more green than building new, and to leave that vacant is something that needs to be corrected. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Arsenault.
Good morning. My name is Doug Arsenault of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, representing more than 370 businesses in the city of Los Angeles that have created over 100,000 jobs. For over a decade, AEG's LA Live has supported the local community through investments in affordable housing, local hiring, and green space development. Given AEG's reputation as a good corporate citizen, the city should look forward to an opportunity to replicate LA Live's success with Farmers Field. Most importantly, this project is in alignment with our city's economic revitalization goals, particularly the strengthening of the entertainment, convention, and tourism industries. Farmers Field is estimated to result in more than 7,000 construction and 8,000 permanent operating jobs. At a time when Angelina struggled to find work, the Farmers Field provides opportunity. The development of Farmers Field will serve as a catalyst for economic revitalization, and we urge your support in moving this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Ferrer will be followed by Maria Wiest, and then Ron Wood, then Frank Lopez, and Mr. Rocky Pellicino. All right, Ms. Ferrer.
Good morning, Council. My name is Kathy Farrar, representing Los Angeles Job Corps. I am pleased to say that hearing the comments about making available employment opportunities to young adults, that AEG has done just that. Los Angeles Job Corps has over 45 successful years in experience in training young adults ages 16 to 24 in various trainings to include construction and hospitality-related trades. And we can say firsthand that some of our students were awarded employment and continue to be awarded employment opportunities with Staples, LA Live, and the Nokia Theater. And we're excited about this stadium project, and it will indeed allow additional employment opportunities for trained Los Angeles Job Corps students who reside within walking distance of this project. Again, we offer our full support. Thank you.
Maria Wiest.
Hi, I'm the CAO of United Way of Greater Los Angeles, and we are here in support of Farmers Field. I have been involved deeply in developing the community benefit agreement with many, many leaders from our community. And I must tell you that this partnership that AEG has built amongst community leaders has been very impressive. They have followed through on their commitments. They are trustworthy. They know what it takes to build collaboration amongst the community. We at United Way embrace all of those elements, building partnerships, collaborating, and building trust along the way. And I really believe that we need to do whatever we can to build the economic engine for our county, for our city. And United Way is full-heartedly behind this project. Please approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Wood.
I'm Ron Wood, president of the Valley Economic Alliance, and on behalf of the board of directors, we want to urge your support to move this project forward at absolute fastest pace possible. Jobs are absolutely at the core of economic development, and with a project like this, with 15,000 plus jobs on the line, we believe that the assessment of risk that the city is concerned about is there's a great benefit to assuming a little bit of risk with that, what little there might be. As a component of scope and scale, next month we're holding the largest employment fair in the Valley called Honor a Hero, Hire a Vet. We hope to place 200 people that day in positions. When we think about this opportunity, this is something on the order of 80 to 100 times that scale. That's a lot of employment opportunity for people, and we urge your support.
Thank you. Frank Lopez.
Good morning, council members. My name is Frank Lopez, and I'm here representing the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce and our 1,600 members. I'd like to thank the City of Los Angeles and AEG for producing a thorough assessment of the positive impact and economic development opportunities Farmers Field can bring to LA. The Chamber feels that this is an important project for the City of Los Angeles, and this project will continue the economic resurgence of downtown Los Angeles and offers great synergy with the existing tourism and entertainment industry in Los Angeles County. Businesses throughout the region will benefit from this project, and it will generate much needed tax revenue at the city, county, and state level. We applaud the thoroughness of the mitigation efforts outlined in the environmental impact report, and we strongly encourage your adoption of the measures to help bring much needed jobs and economic growth to the City of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pellicino.
Good morning, Madam Chair and City Council. This is a great day. First, you got my last name right.
Thank you.
And number two, we have the space shuttle en route to its home. I must say here is that I myself, as a labor leader for this great city of ours for the last 20 years, I've had the great privilege of listening to many, many great speakers of leaders speak. I've had the great privilege of President Clinton, President Obama, the great late John Wooden, and also I heard another great leader speak here this morning, Mr. Tim Leiweke. All great leaders have a vision. And I must say is that in the vision of AEG, they laid out a plan that is second to none. And for me as a labor leader, of course, jobs. To each and every one of you as leaders, I hope that you jump on the vision that is being laid out here by AEG and show the great city that we are here for all great Angelenos and to produce jobs. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, we ask a unanimous vote by you to send to the City Council yes to this project and be part of the vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next five speakers will be Ann Williams, Foracy Hogan Rolls, David Menchaca, Thomas Bateman, and Shamari Davis.
Good morning. I'm Ann Williams with the Central City Association. The Central City Association represents over 400 businesses employing nearly 350,000 people in Los Angeles, and we strongly support moving forward with the stadium and event center. You all know that downtown Los Angeles has experienced a rebirth in the past decade, and kicking off that renaissance was the opening of Staples Center in 1999. But we need to remember that this renaissance is fragile, and its ultimate success is not a foregone conclusion. Continued investment is absolutely necessary. Tourism and entertainment remain the most vital economic drivers for Los Angeles' economy, and major conventions and other large-scale events are critical in this industry sector. The proposed development of a new event center and the redevelopment of the convention center are game-changing. Staples Center and LA Live turn the lights on in downtown, and building a major event center here would light up all of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Foracy Hogan Rolls.
I apologize, Madam Councilmember. I did not hear my name called earlier. I am Foracy Hogan Rolls, President and CEO of Community Financial Resource Center, and I was thinking back about I'm a native of Los Angeles. I grew up with the LA Rams and the Raiders, and suddenly decades went by and we had no NFL team. And to think that AEG has taken the time, the energy, and the investment, made the investment into our economy to just get to this point in the process, I just want to commend AEG for sticking through, because I know it's been grueling. The over 200 meetings that they've held for community. I've attended many of those personally. We are stakeholders. We are located on 4060 South Figueroa Street. We own our building. We're less than 2 miles away from this proposed development. We strongly encourage you to support this project. It's going to be amazing, both through job creation and business development. We are a part of what has become the most renowned community benefits agreement anywhere that the NFL will take a look at, and we encourage you to vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you. David Menchaca. Shamari, you better warm up your vocal cords.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank this committee for the open and transparent effort in which you've conducted all of these meetings. I've attended just about every single one of them, and so I want to recognize you and your staff and the city staff for all the great work that they do in this area. In each meeting that I come to, there's always something new that gets added to this wonderful project. The city improvement plan, I heard that this morning, that it aligns with the plan. That we have the bike plan, the convention center, the environmental improvements, the open space, the green space, the dog park, Gilbert Lindsay Plaza, community benefits program, local hire, new hotels, Pico Union Corridor. This is all about creating jobs and a better life for everybody in Los Angeles. And you can add to more and more to that list, but in the end here, we have to fight for this. You know, our friends over there in the city of industry, they're fighting for their city. They're working hard every day to figure out how they're going to get this program, and we need to fight for Los Angeles. And we want to thank AEG for all their support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right. So, Mr. Davis, would you like to do what you do?
Oh, are you talking about ready for some football?
Yeah.
Oh. You know, there was a request. I guess I'll have to do it.
Yeah.
Are you ready for some football?
I think the answer
I
is
am.
yes. So, very nice. Very nice.
Shamari Davis with IBW Local 11. Obviously, I'm a football fan, but more importantly, I'm an LA resident, and I'm very excited about this project because of a relationship and trust. And it's not misguided trust, it's trust that has a history. I was here with LA Live, and I saw a young man who was part of the local hire program who just talked to a month ago, who from LA Live project took a hold of a transcendental type of career and has bought himself a new home. Under 30, that's just unheard of with a career, with the way that jobs have been happening lately. And so I really, really want to make sure that we support a good project that has done everything it's needed to do in order to make it successful in LA. We want to change LA and make it the best, and AEG has done that, and they will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your voice. Tom Bateman, and you have your crew with you?
Yes, I do. Good morning, council members. My name is Tom Bateman, and I'm with Bring Back the Los Angeles Rams, and our group represents the thousands and thousands of fans and the millions of dollars that we look forward to spending in downtown LA Live and Farmers Field. We want to thank the City Council for protecting the interests of the city's taxpayers while also realizing the fantastic opportunity the Farmers Field project represents to the city for an improved convention center and thousands of much-needed jobs for all these awesome construction and event center workers. Also for civic pride and for the return of our football team, the Los Angeles Rams. We enthusiastically and passionately support AEG, Tim Lywicki, and the City Council, and encourage you to take this great step forward together for the City of Los Angeles and for Southern California. Thank you.
So you have a jersey for number 16?
There we go.
Did you want to call him up?
Tampering.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now we'll go to Joyce Dillard. Oh. Whoa, okay. That'll be the last time you ask that. All right, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Ms. Jan Perry, I wanted to let you know we have not forgot about Mr. Woody Strode.
Oh, thank you.
You know it.
Thank you. Thank you. You were lucky the first time. Okay. Joyce Dillard, Irene Lewis, and Russell Brown to close. Ms. Dillard.
Yes, I'm very concerned about the financial end of this. The CIRs, there was a previous CIR with the CRA as a lead agency. No addendum was done for it. They weren't even notified of this. You have on the mailing list, you don't know their address. I really find that hard to believe since you're transferring properties back and forth. There's this dispute going on. The state of California Department of Finance is over it. There's CDBG money, around $42 million involved here. There's TFAR, which they had on their agenda last week for the convention center that you seem to be getting rid of and really not addressing either on the city side and the CRA side. And I approached them last week in public comment and made that comment. This is supposed to be a transit-oriented development. Where is it? CDBG money, consolidated plan money, is being designed around transit-oriented developments, and I do not see that in this at all. I have problems with the land use permit applications. I have problems with the AR. I have problems with sustainability, with watersheds, everything. This is not being done for the long-term benefit of us citizens.
Thank you very much. Ms. Irene Lewis and Russell Brown to close on item 1A.
Irene Lewis, Executive Director of the Salvation Army Community Center in Pico Union. The center has been in Pico Union since 1950. I've been there for 22 years. I'm here really to attest to some of the concerns that have been spoken, and I can tell you in 1999 when the Staples Center was built, we saw an incredible improvement. I will tell you that when there is a Laker game and several events going on at LA Live, we're 4 blocks west of the Staples Center on 11th Street. It's no impact. They've done a tremendous job in mitigating traffic for the betterment of the community. Their commitment to the community has improved the quality of life in Pico Union. Jobs, not only at LA Live, Staples Center, but at the convention center as well, have countless young people and families who have benefited from that and provided for their families. So I will tell you that in the years that I've been there, I have seen good. AEG's commitment to the community is 110%. And Tom, to date, we've received almost 1,000 tickets for various events.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, to close.
Thank you. Russell Brown, 10-year resident of downtown, and I've also been very involved with the Downtown LA Neighborhood Council. In the 10 years I've lived downtown, I think we've all seen dramatic change in our neighborhoods, especially with residents. One of those huge changes has been Staples Center and LA Live. The Neighborhood Council, many of the bids, we've had presentations to the LA Bid Consortium. There's almost unanimous approval of everyone supporting this. The Neighborhood Council also coordinates and represents many of the residents in South Park, and they enthusiastically support this. I especially want to commend AEG for their openness with all the meetings, their public involvement, and especially the LEED certification, the local job hires, and the transportation improvements, including the streetcar. Thanks.
All right, great. That completes item 1A, and we have to vote on items 1A through E in altogether. So we're going to go on now to 1B, and I would ask the clerk to read that item into the record. We have a number of speaker cards.
Madam Chair, before we do that, there was one item that was brought up that I wanted to address before we move on. And one of the speakers brought it up. Just for the record, I just want to make sure there's clarity. On the environmental side, one of the planners had expressed that there was 8 areas of concern when we went through the EIR, and that was a comment that was made on the record, and we just heard from the public comments and other concerns. So I want to make sure it's clear that we're mitigating those concerns, or how we're mitigating them. If you could just address it briefly.
Karen Hu, City Planning Department. The EIR discussed many environmental topics, and in almost every category we have incorporated either design features or mitigation measures to reduce the level of environmental impact. There are 8 areas to which you, as a council, in approving this document, will also have to approve a statement of overriding considerations, because we could not reduce those impacts to a level that was less than significant. Those 8 areas are in transportation, air quality, aesthetics and visual resources, cultural and historic resources, views, artificial light and glare, noise, utilities, solid waste.
So given those areas, we are addressing them with mitigating conditions.
Yes, there are conditions.
That's what I need to hear for the
Yes.
record, because we raise the concerns, but we haven't spoken to how we mitigate those concerns. And that, to me, is crucial for the record, given the public comment that's been made. And I don't want to leave that open, because that, I believe, leaves us vulnerable in the future. So to be very clear, to support this process and this program, if you can just address it briefly, that's, I think, is what's of importance to this process.
Correct. Councilmember, if I may, Mike LeGrand, Director of Planning. Before you use a legally very defensible document called an environmental impact report, anytime you have a project like this of this scale, many times there's certain items that can't be mitigated under CEQA to a level of insignificance. That's why we have these statements of overriding consideration saying the benefits of this project outweigh some of the issues that we're not able to provide under CEQA mitigation for. Having said that, the department and the applicant and the city has still done their best to mitigate those impacts to tolerable levels as much as we can using the best sophisticated methods we have available to us. But in terms of the legal CEQA document, we have to make sure that we are transparent and we disclose that information to the public, to the decision makers being yourself, so that you know here are some areas that even with the best technology in CEQA, and some of these are existing conditions that this adds to, we weren't able to mitigate them under CEQA to less than significant. Having said that, though, there is a package of mitigation that go along that do our best to reduce these to acceptable levels, and we're confident in that document that we have before you. It's a very conservative environmental document that we feel will hold up well over the years of time. It's very forward thinking and has lots of mitigation in it that's state of the art. So we're very proud to bring that to you today, and we feel that it is something you can adopt.
Can you highlight some of those
Sure.
elements?
Karen, if you'd like to highlight some of the mitigation.
And just before Karen speaks, John Foreman, Planning Department. I also wanted the council to know that part of the Senate Bill 292, SB 292 requirements were that after release of the draft DIR, staff, city attorney, and environmental staff spent well over 100 hours meeting with people who filed, or organizations who filed for mediation, and additional mitigation measures, project design features were incorporated and included in the final EIR, in the specific plan, or in the development agreement.
Okay. Well, the chair is back, so just be very brief, but I want to make sure we address this in the record.
In your packet, you will find about over 100 pages of mitigation measures that totally outline everything that is involved. I think the most of interest is traffic, for instance. There will be funds set aside for improvements, lots of street improvements, extra lanes. There's going to be a traffic demand management program that would be set up with coordination between Caltrans, LADOT, police, and fire, as well as a facility on site to house all these people that will then be able to direct traffic, know where all the problems areas are, as well as to, in advance, decide what measures need to be taken. There are all sorts of air quality measures that they use clean technology in their equipment and building the project. There are traffic, construction traffic measures as well.
So I have a constituent in the Pico Union side that has an issue or a problem. This is the center they would call?
Yes, it will be set up for that as well.
Great.
Great, okay, thank you. Now, we are on item, we're going to 1B. We're on, I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, we're going to vote on them all at once. Is that correct? 1A through E?
Very good.
Okay. All right, so we have cards on 1B. Unless other members have comments or questions, I'll call them all up. There are fewer cards. Mr. Kabaker, Joyce Dillard, hold on a second. Okay, Joyce has... okay, Joyce, you've got all the cards. All right. Mr. Cabaker, come on up. You're the only one on 1B then.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to follow up on the traffic comment that our property on Figueroa is located at Olympic, walking distance to the facilities being considered. It would represent an adaptive reuse should we make an arrangement with AEG to work together to use our facility in conjunction with the new football stadium and their other facilities. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Joyce Dillard on 1B.
You have not included the Los Angeles Convention Exhibition Center Authority, who leases the land to you and who issues the bonds. They have no resolution. They always have in the past. They've been lead agents on the environmental agreement. LA Parking Structures, which just was incorporated in Delaware on August 27th, doesn't even show up in the California records yet. So in essence, you're bypassing the authorities that really need to approve this just to shove it through. And again, I'm worried for the long-term financial aspect of the city and the oversight. That authority is very well versed on how it makes money. It looks like a loser at this point. They did not, they tried to pass a design by them on their last meeting. They lost quorum, thank goodness, because they don't want to do wrong for the city. You've had those agreements since 67. There's no reason why you can't include them. The CRA was part of the other agreement. You're leaving them out. It's very wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes item 1B. Mr. Clerk, let's go. Please give us the description of 1C.
Item 1C, City Attorney Report, Amendment Number 2 to the Staples Center Development Agreement and Ordinance authorizing the execution of Amendment Number 2 to the Staples Center Development Agreement by and among the City of Los Angeles and LA Arena Land Company, Inc. in order to amend the legal description of the property removed therein from portions of the property that have been released from the arena ground lease pursuant to the First Amendment to the arena ground lease, and amend the definition of, quote, project approvals, unquote, to be consistent with the Convention and Event Center approval.
Joyce Dillard, please come back on 1C, along with Alan Cabaker. I have 2 speaker cards on that one. Joyce Dillard? Okay, she's coming. You can start while she's coming up. Well, actually, she's almost here now, so. Is that something that is, I don't. Well, let me get Stephanie up here. Stephanie?
Again, I'm concerned. This deal was cut with the CRA, the Convention Center Authority. Staples, there's never been an accounting of the terms of the Staples lease. Yet you're taking authority over it. They just lease the property to what the city owns. Changing, again, the arena to change the TFAR, there's long-ranging implications. Can you build hotels? Oh, really? Doesn't that TFAR have something to do with hotels being built? So in essence, you're bypassing the system, saying that the city has the right to do it. Yes, you have the lease, but other people were involved in it. You're changing the entrance of supply to the Staples Center and not doing an addendum on it. You're making it like it's part of the event center. It is not, and you're changing the footprint of it, which I disagree with. You've diminished the whole aspect of what the convention center is about. And again, I'm not appreciative of no accounting. The terms never balance. So I would appreciate that you would do some financial and due diligence on this. Thank you.
She had told me about it.
I wanted to be clear that as a property owner along Figueroa, we support Farmers Field to be built, and we're looking forward to working cooperatively with AEG or their successor so that our facilities can be used to their highest and best use, given the change in the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes 1C. And if there are no comments from council members, I will ask the clerk to go to 1D and put that description of that item on the record.
Item 1D, City Attorney Report, Second Amendment to Third Amended and Restated Development Agreement and Ordinance authorizing the execution of the Second Amendment to the Third Amended and Restated Development Agreement by and among City of Los Angeles and LA Arena Land Company, LLC, Flower Holding, LLC, Olympic and Georgia Partners, LLC, LA Live Theater, LLC, LA Live Properties, LLC, FIDM Residential, Inc., and Fig Central Fee Owner, LLC, to modify the existing use restriction on the Convention Center expansion parcel in the Olympic West sub-area of the Los Angeles Sports and Entertainment District. Specific plan to provide that the Convention Center expansion parcel may be used for any uses permitted in the LASED specific plan upon completion of the new hall.
All right, great. Good to see you. If there are no comments from colleagues, I will ask Joyce Dillard and Alan Kabaker to come forward on item 1D. Mr. Kabaker, you can start.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to reiterate my support for Farmers Field. Thanks again.
Thank you. Don't go too far because you made a card for 1E also.
I think you need to. Okay. I've written comments over this development agreement over the years. All you do is add to it, whatever, and it becomes part of it, really with no mitigation. You're taking rights off. You're doing this again without the whole picture of what was encompassed in the original vision. It included every single redevelopment district in the city. Even though central business has expired, Pico Union hasn't, and every other. Parking structures, housing. This was a gift to them at the time. You want to continue the gift, but in essence, what do we benefit out of this financially? I don't see where we've benefited for anything. You just expand more. You've used rights and TOTs and deals on this. And long term, I had signed up for 2 and I wasn't called. I will tell you, what I heard in the authority meetings was a personal guarantee from Mr. Anschwitz. There is none in these documents now. It's a future entity, maybe an NFL team. That's no guarantee. We are at such great risk. What we're trying to avoid is bankruptcy. We're trying to look for our future and our children's future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes item 1D and the speakers there. Mr. Clerk, if you would go on to 1E and put that description on the record.
Item 1E, City Attorney Report, a second amendment to the Third Amended and Restated Development Agreement, and ordinance authorizing the execution of the Second Amendment to the Third Amended Amendment to modify Section 6.B.4 of Los Angeles Sports and Entertainment District specific plan to allow development of the Convention Center expansion parcel with any other use permitted by the specific plan, et al.
All right, again, we have 2 cards on that. Joyce Dillard, why don't you come up first, and then Alan Kabaker.
Again, this was done with the CRA involved. Now they're not. Yet they're still looking at these parcels for TFAR. And you have the state over this, and you're having a battle with jurisdiction of who owns what property. You have to transfer back. The whole situation needs to be analyzed by you, the council. You need to do the due diligence in this. This skirted through. Yes, it's nice to have an entertainment district, but really, for what benefit? Why lift it if we can't see a way of paying the debt? You really have not given us any guarantees. And no one I know that writes on this development plan. I've written over the years. To no avail, it just goes through. But we're really, really looking as to our future here. You'll be out of office, but we'll have to pay the taxes, or we'll be faced with it. So we ask for you to take the time to really analyze the deals that have been done and just not skirt it with a new one or a new amendment. You really need to do your work here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kabaker.
I just want to reiterate my support for the Farmers Field.
Thank you very much. All right, any comments from colleagues? This is 1A through E, and then we will go on to item 2.
On 1B, there are some amendments that we wanted to consider. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to wait till later?
I think that we should incorporate that now, and if you will allow me, I'll make some quick remarks to give this some context. As the development agreement is written, AEG will contribute $2 million to the planning department for Central City, South Los Angeles, and Pico Union. $500,000 is set aside for both, I believe, Pico Union and South Los Angeles. And Mr. Reyes, I believe you want to introduce a motion for South Los Angeles and Pico Union. It does not increase the amount of the contribution, and once you've made that motion, I would be happy to second it.
Yeah, essentially, it just ensures that it's $500,000 each, one for South LA and Pico Union within the umbrella that's already been defined. So as you said, Madam Chair, it doesn't increase it. I also wanted to introduce replace a last sentence on the Neighborhood Protection Land Use Analysis Plan 3.2.3.1, and that's, I believe, where that lies. At 3.2.3.2, the Pico Union Streetscapes Improvements, should I introduce that now, or do you want me to do that later?
Do it now.
All right. Prior to the issuance of demolition permit for the West Hall of the Convention Center, the event center owner shall submit to the Director of Planning a plan which shall be prepared at no cost to the city for the implementation of streetscape improvements, such as street trees, sidewalk scoring, street furniture, street lighting, etc., from the specific plan boundary running west to Union Avenue, and shall cover both sides of the street that's stated within the development agreement. And add to the development agreement, recommend funding for a business improvement district, BID. The event center owner will pay $75,000 for a consultant to create one or multiple business improvement districts within these general boundaries: north of Washington, south of Pico, east of Alvarado Hoover, and west of the 110 freeway. Again, this allows for the communities around this event center to help define themselves as they grow and improve on the economic development strategy, incorporating these land use and planning tools. Thank you.
All right.
I just have some questions on that. I don't have it written in front of me, and I want to make sure I know the impact of that what we're voting on. And I'm wondering if staff has reviewed this and what the essential implications of this are.
Mike LeGrand, City Planning Department. This item was discussed at the City Planning Commission on the 12th. The intent with this funding through the development agreement is to try and make sure that we have the proper land uses surrounding the stadium to not only make the best benefit and catalytic project we can, but to also try and attract hotels and make sure that we have some of those items pre-zoned so that when we have hotels come to Los Angeles, rather than looking at the cheapest land possible to move on to, for example, maybe a surface parking lot, a car wash, we're able to say, no, we actually have a row here. We'd like to see the hotels within walking distance of the convention center with attractive streetscape and infrastructure to support those. That was the intent of some of the money. The mayor himself was in negotiations with AEG regarding Central City and making sure that we had money to update plans in the Central City area. What you have before you, I just received a copy of, changes the allocation of that money from the $2 million, with $500,000 being earmarked for the communities of Pico, Union, and South Los Angeles, to take $500,000 additional, so that $500,000 would go towards Pico Union, and additional $500,000 towards South Los Angeles. Another project that will be before you shortly has a development agreement called the USC Master Plan that does provide funding for the South LA community. In addition, we have 2 community plan updates coming before this council that also are addressing some of the planning issues in South LA. We do agree that there's more to take up. Our recommendation and discussion at the Planning Commission was we wanted to leave some leeway in this, so as we see the stadium proposal come forward and we identify the issues in these communities, we have some flexibility to make sure that we spend the money wisely, because although the numbers sound high, once we get into the amount of outreach and public engagement it takes, the money goes pretty quickly. So we wanted to have some flexibility to work with the council offices to make sure we're getting the most catalytic project we can, but also protecting those neighborhoods who may have some impacts or may have some development opportunities that we're not aware of currently that we can help to forecast and steer to those communities.
Okay, thank you. Well, as I read these for the first time, I see the first amendment that is just allocating more clearly where $500,000 will go to, both for Pico Union, South LA. the last one, it's very clear, $75,000 for business improvement districts, but the Pico Union streetscape improvements, that is asking for improvements on the streetscape, such as trees, sidewalks, scoring, street furniture, street lighting. That would require a dollar amount, wouldn't it? And what is that dollar amount?
Lucy Batter with the Planning Department. The development agreement as it pertains to Pico Union streetscape improvements, it's asking the development of a plan that goes from the boundary of the specific plan area west, and as Mr. Reyes pointed out, for a length that extends out to Union Avenue. The way it's drafted now, we have a length of 500 feet to cover both sides of the street. That plan will just include
It's just a plan.
It's just
Okay,
the plan.
I got it.
And the DA right now has an allocation of $500,000 towards the implementation of those streetscape improvements.
Good. And how much does that plan cost?
Well, we have it so that it's at no cost to the city, and we're asking the event center owner to prepare that.
Is it $1 million? Is it $2?
Somewhere in between.
Is Martha Salcedo from AEG here? Maybe she can come up and provide some answers to Mr. Huizar's questions.
Do you have another copy? Is that it? I just wanted to clear it. I didn't know what it was.
Good morning. My name is Martha Saucedo. I'm the Executive Vice President of External Affairs for AEG, and with me is Ted Tanner, Executive Vice President for Real Estate Development. There were a number of specific mitigation measures identified with respect to various communities surrounding the project site, including Pico Union, some of which are included in the mitigation monitoring plan, some of which are incorporated in the community benefits program. The dollar amount that was allocated specifically for streetscape improvements in the area outside of the project site was specifically in response to comments we heard with respect to implementing some very specific streetscape improvements that would better connect the project site with the community on the west side of us, Pico Union. It includes streetscape improvements along key portal areas that connects our side with the other side of the freeway going up to currently Albany.
Thank you. And I think we could save all of our time. What I just want to just get more specific in the proposed amendment by Mr. Reyes, because it says that a plan will be developed for those streetscape improvements at no cost to the city. So that means that AEG will pay for them. Well, we don't want you to come back and say, we didn't agree to $1 million plan. I mean, how much do these plans cost? And maybe Mr. Legrand could help us. Is it a $300,000 plan? How much do these plans cost?
Well, let me just tell you from a procedural standpoint, these motions are going to have to be made again on Friday, so we could use this opportunity to allow them to work with AEG to come up with a well-delineated response to your request and have it ready by Friday, and the motion will have to be remade anyway.
If I may, Madam Chair, to address Councilman Huizar's concerns, one is that we're trying to establish an environment that benefits AEG, the center, as they come towards the center on the other side of the freeway. Albany, to me, is a very short distance, only 500 feet. If you're familiar with the area, it is it's an area that's very challenged. It has an impact and an effect that could use some cleaning up, some improvement to enhance desirability, and that's why I'm trying to switch out to Union. It benefits the community, it benefits AEG. In the context of everything else, the cost, I believe, should be doable, given the benefit that can come from that corridor.
Yeah, okay. But it's not part of that additional $500,000 of the $2 million. Would that funding cover this? No, it's separate, right?
I really can give you a direct answer, because that's something we need to work out.
This is a separate line item under 3232, and it to give you context. I can't speak the number, but I can talk about the materials and craftsmanship. The landscaping, fixtures, and materials used shall be compatible to those used in the specific plan area, and the streetscape improvement plan shall describe them detailed. So it's basically the same treatment you see within the specific plan would be provided on those boulevards.
Okay, I was just pointing out that we should be specific there as these negotiations move along, so that later on one party doesn't want to feel that the other's not complying because it wasn't as clear. But I think the chairwoman's recommendation is a good one, that maybe we come back on Friday and get more clarity on that item.
Well, we have the time. We have the time for you to provide clarity on that issue.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, great.
Mayor, just one friendly request, if I could. Look at the opportunity. You did a great job with the Grammy Museum in LA Live. If you could, and there's a violation of reading your BlackBerry when a council member's talking in the row 3. Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to look at the Los Angeles Sports Museum or something else to capture the heritage of sports, professional sports, and other sports. The Los Angeles Sports Museum in Maine and Washington is a little outside the district of walkability. But have you ever seen that museum? I have. Yeah, it'd be a great component for your vision for the future.
Why don't you tell him that he's already in there?
He's already in there. You scored.
We've actually housed a lot of his collection at the Staples Center.
Good job. Okay, just thank you very much. You're ahead of me.
Thank you very much. All right, that completes items 1A through E. And Mr. Clerk, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the recommendation is to adopt the CPC report as amended by the September 24th Planning Department with its technical corrections, that report. Am I correct?
That's my understanding, Madam Chair.
All right, so do you want to do a voice vote on that?
That'd be...
Okay, let's go with that. Again, the recommendation, we got a lot of ambient noise going on here, but it's to adopt the CPC report as amended by the September 24th Planning Department technical correction. Mr. Clerk, why don't you call the roll?
Councilmember Perry?
Thank you. Mike LeGrand, for the record, the changes that were technical in nature provided by the applicant's letter dated today to be incorporated in your action will be our recommendation.
All right, so please include Mr. LeGrand's reference to the letter dated today's date, which is September 24th. I did say that, as amended by the September 24th Planning Department technical corrections. Is that what you're referring to? Okay, so let me just restate it one more time. Adopt CPC report as amended by the September 24th Planning Department technical corrections. All right, let's do a voice vote on that.
All right, Councilmember Jan Perry?
Aye.
Councilmember Tony Cardenas? Not present. Councilmember Ed P. Reyes?
Yes.
Councilmember Tom LaBonge?
Aye.
Councilmember Bill Rosendahl? Absent.
This is on what item?
And Councilmember Jose Huizar?
I was speaking here with someone. This is on what item?
This is 1A through E.
Okay. Well, I'm going to hold my vote on the streetscape thing until we get better clarification.
Well, we don't do abstentions, do we, Mr. Clerk? Or so you can either vote yes or no?
My understanding was a yes/no on each of the components.
I'll just say a no on the amendment until I get better information.
All right, well, then we should go back and vote it individually, 1A, and then 1B, then 1C, then 1E.
All right, then.
All right, so then, and I'm not sure if the city attorney is here. Can we do that once we've already almost gotten through the vote? Is there a city attorney here?
Yes, there is. He's thinking about your question, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think you can go back and do that. I do think I need to clarify something for the record, though.
Great.
There were
these
two
are
items of today's date that you're voting on, as Mr. LeGrand indicated. There's a letter from the applicant's attorney in addition to the letter from the planning department, both dated today's date, containing the technical corrections.
Are you recommending that I include a reference to the applicant's letter, or is it sufficient? Yes. So you're suggesting that I amend my statement to say adopt CPC report as amended by the September 24th Planning Department technical corrections and letter from the applicant dated September 24, 2012 in addition.
That's correct. The applicant's attorney, the Armbruster
Additionally.
Goldsmith. Yes.
All right, since we're going to vote about this again, go through this again. The recommendation is to adopt the CPC report as amended by the September 24th Planning Department technical corrections, including applicant's letter dated September 24th, 2012, that was hand-delivered this morning to this committee. Is that sufficient, Mr. City Attorney? That's okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, let's go through this one at a time then. 1A.
Item 1A, Councilmember Perry.
Aye.
Councilmember Reyes.
Yes.
Councilmember Labange.
Aye.
It's
Councilmember Weezer.
Aye.
Item 1B, Councilmember Perry.
Aye.
Councilmember Reyes.
Yes.
Councilmember Labange.
Aye.
Councilmember Weezer.
Aye.
Item 1C, Councilmember Perry.
Aye.
Councilmember Reyes.
Yes.
Councilmember Labange.
Aye.
Councilmember Weezer.
Aye.
Item 1D, Councilmember Perry.
Aye.
Councilmember Reyes.
Yes.
Councilmember Labange.
Aye.
Councilmember Weezer.
Aye.
All right. And for item 1E, Councilmember Perry.
Aye.
Councilmember Reyes.
Yes.
Councilmember Labange.
Aye.
Councilmember Weezer.
Aye.
And that covers all items 1A through 1E.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we go to item 2.
Item number 2, CLA report, CAO, and interim general manager joint report, and CAO report relative to transaction documents and new hall design for the modernization of the LACC and the construction of a new multipurpose event center.
All right, do we have a staff report on item 2? Oh, I'm sorry. You know, Mr. Miller and Mr. Santana, that was the first item that we did, and then I tabled it. So I'm sorry, we've already had the staff presentation on that. But we do have a speaker card from Joyce Dillard, so if Joyce would come forward.
I actually read these reports. They never balance. This one doesn't balance either. I'm very concerned the change of terms of the guarantee. It's so up in the air. NFL football team, no billionaire guaranteeing it personally. Very bad for the city of LA. But also is the Gilbert Lindsay Plaza deal. You've negated the convention center is named after him, but you can't tell by this agreement because it's the walkway to the stadium. You have a private IRS private letter ruling. You have to lease and not be really where they own it, yet you're going to be doing the RFP for the construction of the new hall. Oh, really? It's not already predetermined like everything else has been with infrastructure teams and vision teams and the public cutout? I really doubt it. So I think you really need to look at these implementation agreements. They're a long time. The Staples deal ends in 2024, but you're continuing it. Again, why? Why based on this? There's nothing there to really continue it. And you haven't really reviewed this because you'd see it's out of balance. It's like, what's another $20 million in bonds? You need to look at your revenue and your financing and really get it straight before you vote on it.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from members? There are no other public speaker cards on this item. We have a recommendation for an amendment that the City Council approve revisions to the implementation agreement included in the staff report dated September the 11th, 2012, and that is substantially as provided in Attachment A to the supplemental report, and to make similar revisions to the other relevant transaction documents. And any related revisions be submitted to Council for consideration before Friday, September the 28th, 2012. If anyone has any questions on that recommendation for an adoption to the amendment to item 2, Mr. Miller is here to answer any of those questions. Would you want to do a quick summary? Just do a quick summation.
Well, what you're referring to in the report this morning was where I started off my remarks on looking at the assignment provisions for the transfer of ownership. So the recommendation for this committee would be to approve those substantially as attached, and we'll provide the final language to you prior to the meeting on Friday the 28th.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from other members? If not, Mr. Clerk, if you would take a voice vote on item 2 as amended.
Item 2 is amended. Councilmember Perry?
Aye.
Councilmember Reyes?
Yes.
Councilmember Labange?
Aye.
Councilmember Weezer?
Aye.
All right, that item is approved. So that marks the end of the items on our agenda. And before we go to the general public comment, I just want to say thank you to our city team, our chief legislative analyst, our chief administrative officer, and all their staffs, and to thank them for the great and substantive engagement of the AEG team, and to Mr. Lywicki and his entire team. Thank you for bringing this to the city of Los Angeles. We have been working on this since 2010, and as chair, along with my colleagues, I am very grateful that we have moved forward to ensure that we develop a stadium and convention center that is both modern and competitive while protecting the interests of the taxpayers and bringing more conventions to Los Angeles, more tourism dollars, and the bottom line is more revenue to the city of Los Angeles. I believe that we have gone a long way from those days when we first broke ground from the empty parking lots where Staples now sits to where we are today. And anyone who steps in to lead AEG will be held to the same understanding that we have established here today. We have received numerous assurances from our own team members, from the CAO and the CLA, and from Mr. Lywicki, and we have a deal in place that will accomplish our goals. And as chairperson of the committee and the representative for the area, I am really pleased to be able to stand behind the commitment to fully protect our city's interest, because through this process, this project will bring us well over 20,000 new jobs, untold millions in net new tax revenue, increase our competitive position not only in the country, quite arguably in the world, to support tourism and to bring more tourists here and to create greater investment in our city. Thank you very much. Any other questions from our comments from the members of the committee?
Yes, Madam Chair. As Chair of Plum, I want to thank my colleague, Councilman Perry, for your stewardship in this process, folding in all the different committees, transportation, planning, in this process, streamline it and meet the challenges and goals set in trying to get a NFL team here to Los Angeles. I want to thank the planning department. I know how hard you are working, with 40% of the staff gone, and on top of that, all the other major projects you're working on, to allow this process to move at the clip that it was moving is extraordinary. I want to thank the staff, especially those that were out there with the lights on up till 10, 11, midnight, making sure we met these deadlines. I want to thank Mr. Lywicki and his team for moving forward in this process. I think we're all doing it for the right reasons. The process here entails that we ask these hard questions and raise these issues so we can be as transparent as possible, and I believe we're achieving that. So thank you so much for your hard work.
Any other questions or any other comments from members of the committee?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Weezer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And although, despite the fact I came in late in this process in this ad hoc committee as an alternate, my colleagues that were not on this committee certainly appreciated your leadership, Madam Chair, in getting us to the point where we are. And we want to ensure the public that as we move forward, we as a city have done the best to our ability to get the best deal for the city. And as we move forward as well, that whether it's the current owner or future owner, we will continue to be as diligent as possible to make sure this deal not only happens, but it's in the best interest of the city. And again, it's not only a stadium. As mentioned earlier, it is about jobs, it's about economic development, it's about the beautification and transformation of downtown Los Angeles and the region. So I want to thank everyone involved, the staff. A lot of work putting together these huge documents is a lot of work, and we certainly appreciate that. And to our AEG partners as well, thank you so much. You've done a lot for the city already. We look forward to continue to partner with you in all those other and all those things I just mentioned. So thank you so much, and I'll hit it off to Mr. Labange.
Madam Chairman, I want to thank you. As a district representative, you've always fought hard, and Mr. Reyes, side by side with Ms. Perry, especially at Pico Union. And I love Irene. I don't know if she's still here, but what she's done at the 10th Street Shelter for the very good opportunity that comes to the Salvation Army and the youth center there. I think the opportunity we give people in our city is many things, and many things that they really enjoy or the great cultural landmarks, be it the Hollywood Bowl, the Griffith Observatory, the Coliseum, the Los Angeles Public Library System, and Central Branch, this City Hall, and others. If this could be completed, this will be another great thing that Los Angeles will have. So I want to thank all those involved for this, and I especially want to thank the planners who have had multiple jobs to do, as Mr. Reyes said at this time, the city administrative officer and his members, and also Mr. Miller, who, again, and Sharon and everyone did the job for Staples when John Farrar was here. I asked Jerry quietly over here, would John Farrar be happy? And John would be smiling down on us saying he'd be happy. This is another great step for Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This marks the end of our formal agenda. For anyone wishing to come forward and speak about items that are not on the agenda, this is the public comment period. Seeing that no one is coming forward, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your participation.